So today we're going to share with you what it costs to build a road up a mountain. We're going to talk about how long our road is, how many hours were spent running equipment, and how many tons of gravel it took to cover this road. Now, there are lots of variables that are going to affect your cost, and supplies are going to cost a different amount in different areas. So the price is not going to be the same for everybody. But I make videos like this to kind of help people get a baseline idea of what it might cost them to make improvements to their property. Now, this is big, heavy equipment, and it costs a lot to move it. It requires a dump truck and a big trailer to move a big excavator like this. And so you can expect to pay $150 to $200 to deliver each piece of equipment that's going to be needed to complete your project. We had 4 pieces of equipment working on our job. So we're $600 just to get started. Now, this big old Kobelco excavator, it was a necessity on this job because we had some great big trees that had to be taken out, and we had a lot of big rock that had to be busted up and moved. And for this thing to operate, it costs about $160 an hour. Now, JD has multiple dozers. This is one of the smaller dozers that he has, and he charges $125 an hour to run this 650G. He also has a big 700H with a winch, and I think he charges $160 an hour to run that big dozer. Man, it'll move a lot of dirt. And for that 305 Cat mini excavator, he charges $125 an hour to operate, and it's a very capable excavator that will do a lot of work. In fact, we almost got through this job with it, but we ran into some really big rocks, and so we went ahead and had to bring in the big excavator. And to finalize our road, we had to bring in that Kubota 75-2 track loader, and we used it for finishing out the grade and smoothing out the road, and then packing all this gravel up the hill to get it spread. He charges $100 an hour to run the track loader. So that final day, when we had to spend about 10 or 12 hours running the track loader to get gravel on this, it cost me $1,000 to $1,200 to spread this gravel. And that kind of brings me to my first point that I want to make before we get into our total costs. And that is some of the variables you can run into that will cost you more money. So the first problem you run into when you need to move a lot of material and dig into a mountainside like this is it's hard to know what's underneath that dirt. A lot of the companies that you can hire to do excavating work, if they have to bid a job and more or less guarantee you that they're not going to go over that bid, they have to plan for the worst, and that's what the bid is going to be based on. But if financially you can be prepared for a few hiccups and allow them to just work by the hour and charge you what it costs, sometimes you can get a little better final price if things go smoothly. What we ran into on this job is he was running the mini excavator, and we were hoping for the best until we got to this right here. And we run into this rock, and the mini excavator just could not cut through these layers and move enough rock in order for us to widen this road out the way that we wanted. So we opted to spend the money to bring the big excavator in that could handle this rock better. And even then, if we wanted to go wider at this point in the road right here, we would have had to rent an extra attachment to bust up this rock so that we could clear it out. We decided this was going to be good enough, so we kind of made a trade-off, and we went with a balance that would work. We spent a little more money, got the road a little bit wider, but we could have spent even more and done even better. Those are some of the things that you just can't control. Whatever's in the ground is in the ground, and if you want to go through it, you got to have the equipment to do it. So I mentioned how on the final day we had to spend an extra $1,000 or $1,200 to spread gravel on this hill. And this hill is big. We're getting ready to make the measurement on it and see how long it is. But round trip with a bucket full of gravel on that track loader to this halfway point on the hill was taking 3 minutes, almost 3.5 minutes. So it takes a lot of time to spread gravel on something like this. And the reason we had to do that is because of what time of year it is. Now, today, the ground is nearly frozen. In the wintertime, you get a lot of rain, you get a lot of freezing and thawing. And so Projects almost always are going to cost you more if you're doing it in late fall and winter. The busiest time for any excavating company that I'm aware of is right in the heart of summer when things are dry and they can do a lot of work and not get rained out and not have to deal with variables like, you know, if you're trying to dig a pond, well, if it rains and fills it up, you got to pump it back out and you got to let it dry out before you can move the dirt. All of those things affect how much it's going to cost, because when they bring the equipment to your job site, their equipment's tied up and they can't be using it anywhere else. On this project, what really probably could have been accomplished in about 3 to 4 days in the summertime took place over the course of almost 3 weeks because of the weather. It affected us. And on that final day, the major effect was the fact that we just could not, the ground was too soft to back dump trucks full of gravel onto it. So even when we put down the number 2s at the beginning, it was too soft for the dump trucks to back off on. So we couldn't spread the gravel with the trucks up the hill. The only way to get this project done at this time of the year was to use that track loader. And for me to have access to this hill in the middle of winter when it's muddy and slimy and slick, it was worth the $1,000 or $1,200 I had to spend to get it done. So those are things that you need to be aware of as well. Now, another cost consideration is if there are going to be any drainage supplies that are needed for your road. Because obviously, if you're cutting a road up a mountain, you have to deal with all of the massive amounts of water that are going to be running down your road. And I bought 7 20-foot by 12-inch culverts, and that cost me $1,000. So that's another big added cost to the whole project. And as it turns out, we honestly could have used more because we ended up going wider with the road than what we thought we would be able to. And we had to end up using 30-foot to get across the road in most places. So we didn't put in as many culverts as I wanted to. And that may be something that I have to come back and do later, depending on how this handles the rain and the flow of water. So that's something we'll watch as we go through spring. If the pipes that we put in are not enough to keep it from washing the road out a lot, then I'll probably come back in with my backhoe and put in another set of culverts or 2. So let's get to the overall total cost for this project. So the first thing you need to know to understand the cost of this project is how big of a project was this? I measured the driveway from the road up to where we stopped spreading gravel, and it's 1,108 feet long. So 0.21 miles, almost a quarter mile long. We have a rise in elevation of 200 feet over that 1,100 foot run. That's an 18% slope. So that kind of gives you a pretty good idea of how big of a project this was and how big of a hill that we're dealing with. So I gave you the rundown on the hourly costs of the equipment. They ran the equipment 67.25 hours. You're talking a total cost of about $8,800 for the dirt work, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We moved so much dirt. Not only did we move so much dirt, but they took down big trees and they took the time to save the biggest trees for me so I could cut them into logs. They did a great job of cutting back the hillside and then building up the other side of the road, widening things out, doing exactly what I asked them to do. And I also moved the goalposts on them several times. I would come out here and I would say, guys, I think this road would be better if we run the dirt all the way out to the road and start climbing all the way out at the road pretty much. Just things like that, that as I saw the land develop and saw how it was going to work, I could get a better picture of what we needed. JD and I had talked about some numbers before we started this project. We ended up spending quite a bit more to finish the project than what we initially talked about. But most of that was because of the variables I mentioned earlier and me changing the game plan because I really wanted this road to be right. So 67.25 hours of equipment running. And then we put a total of 173 tons of gravel on this driveway. I ended up buying about 200 tons because I had 36, 37 tons put on my driveway at the house. But the other 8 loads went on this hill, and that was about $3,700 worth of gravel. Gravel costs are something that are going to vary greatly depending on where you live and your proximity to a quarry. We are in a location where there are actually several competing limestone quarries, and we get what I consider great prices on gravel. I can have 20 ton of gravel delivered here for about $425 to my house. Now, you may be one of my neighbors that's 15, 20 minutes from here, and you may pay significantly more or a little bit less if you're closer to the quarry. But you have to think about the big trucks they're running and the diesel they're running out. So my cost might not be exactly what someone else's cost is, but that'll give you kind of a ballpark. But I also know that I have friends in Florida that are paying $900 for a 20-ton load of limestone. So those are something that you can check out your costs on locally, but this will give you an idea of what we're paying in Eastern Kentucky. So the bottom line, we built an 1,100-foot road up our mountain, had all of the excavating done, all of the gravel hauled in, and bought our culvert pipes for under $15,000. It would be about $14,500 is around about where we ended up on this project. That is about half of what I expected it to cost. I have wanted to build this road for years, but I told my wife, I think it would probably cost $30,000 to have a road cut up that mountain. And we just don't have that kind of money. To finally reach a point where we were able to financially spend what we did to have this road cut is a huge blessing. And I have a lot of you to thank for that because you support our channel and watch our videos, and that's how we make projects like this happen. But also, we have a great relationship with a great contractor who will come in here and do good, hard, honest work and give us a great product. So I couldn't be happier with our road build. And I hope us sharing our experience with you and sharing our costs with you will help you with your planning as you develop your property. And until next time, get outside and enjoy God's creation because, man, it is beautiful out here. Y'all have a good day.